What if I told you that inheriting a house could actually bankrupt you?
Mm.
I mean, think about it.
It sounds totally backwards, right?
It really does. But we see those brightly colored, handwritten-looking signs stapled to telephone poles literally all the time.
Oh, yeah, the one screaming, "We buy houses for cash."
Exactly. You see them on targeted online ads, billboards, just everywhere. And if you're anything like me, you've probably stared at one of those signs and wondered who on earth actually bypasses the normal real estate market to sell their home to an investor for cash,
Yeah.
usually at a huge discount.
Right. It feels like there has to be a catch.
Yeah. So today, we're taking a magnifying glass to this entire alternative market. Our mission for this deep dive is to unpack a stack of articles, guides, and market analyses published by a company right in the thick of it. They're called Las Vegas Sell House Fast Buyers.
Which is a very literal name.
Very literal. We are looking specifically at insight from writers Elena Smith and John Constantine, who have documented the hidden mechanics of distressed property sales.
And it's fascinating material.
It really is. We want to understand the deeply human stories of life transitions that drive this industry. We're going to demystify exactly why homeowners are increasingly choosing fast cash over the traditional open market.
Yeah, because it fundamentally challenges how we are culturally programmed to view real estate,
Right.
We usually look at selling a house through a very specific lens.
Yeah.
You hire an agent, you fix up the kitchen, you vacate the house every single weekend for open houses.
Ugh, the open houses.
Yeah, they're the worst. And then you wait months for a family with the bank loan to fall in love with the place. But there is an entire secondary ecosystem of real estate transactions operating right under our noses.
Hiding in plain sight.
Exactly. And this alternative market is driven by entirely different economic and logistical engines. We're going to look at the specific scenarios where speed and certainty become, frankly, infinitely more valuable than squeezing out top dollar.
Which is hard for some people to wrap their heads around.
It is. But once you understand the mechanics of how these cash buyers operate, you start to realize this isn't just about brick and mortar. It's about how people navigate some of the most vulnerable and complex financial moments of their lives.
Okay, let's unpack this,
Okay.
because I want to start with the scenario I mentioned right at the top. It completely threw me when I was reading through the sources. We have to look at inheritance.
Oh, this is a big one.
Yeah, because if you tell a friend you just inherited a house, their first reaction is going to be, oh my gosh, congratulations.
Right. They think you just won the lottery.
Exactly. It sounds like a
I
total
know.
blessing, right?
Yeah.
A massive windfall. But according to the guides, it is frequently a logistical and financial trap. It feels a bit like winning a free boat.
That is the perfect analogy.
Right. It sounds absolutely amazing when they hand you the keys, right up until the exact moment you realize you have to pay the docking fees and you have to winterize the engine.
And spend your weekends scraping barnacles off the hull.
Yes. Suddenly, that quote-unquote free boat is actively draining your bank account every single month.
Yeah, and the mechanism that turns an inherited house into that barnacle-covered boat is called probate.
Probate. Okay, explain that for us.
Right, so when a loved one passes away, their assets don't just magically transfer into your name overnight. The estate actually has to go through probate court.
Even if there's a will.
Even if there's a will. It's the legal process of validating that will, paying off the deceased person's debts, and finally distributing the remaining assets. And the articles point out that these legal processes can drag on for months, sometimes even years.
Wait, years? Just to get the house in your name?
Yeah, years, because the reason it takes so long is that the court actually mandates specific waiting periods. They have to allow unknown creditors to come forward and make claims against the estate.
Wow.
So during that entire window, the property is just stuck in legal limbo. You don't fully own it yet, but the estate is still completely responsible for it.
And while the house is just sitting there in legal limbo, the carrying costs do not stop.
Not at all.
I mean, the property taxes are still due, the utilities have to be kept on, so the pipes don't freeze or the house doesn't develop a massive mold problem.
And the insurance premiums still need to be paid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Plus, the writers note that older homes often need significant repairs before they can even be listed on the traditional market. So you're basically bleeding cash just to keep the lights on for a house you can't even legally live in or sell yet.
It's incredibly stressful for families.
But wait, let me push back here for a second because I'm looking at this checklist from the sources. It advises heirs to consult a probate attorney to accelerate a sale. Can you actually sell a house while it's still locked up in probate court?
What's fascinating here is that you can, but it requires a very specific legal mechanism. And this is exactly where the cash buyer market intersects with the legal system.
Okay, how does that work?
Well, you can initiate a sale while the property is in probate, sure, but the transaction is entirely contingent on the probate process completing and the court giving final approval.
Oh, I see. So there's no guaranteed closing date.
Right. So imagine you are a traditional buyer, like a family looking to move into a new neighborhood before the school year starts.
Oh.
If you make an offer on an inherited house and the seller says, great, we accept, but we don't know if we can close in 30 days or 8 months, depending on what a judge says,
Yeah.
you are going to walk away.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I can't plan my life around that.
Nobody can. But institutional cash investors, however, are built for this exact uncertainty. They have the capital to just wait it out. They frequently work directly with probate attorneys to structure these contingent deals, which totally takes the burden off the grieving family.
That makes a lot of sense. The cash buyer basically absorbs the waiting game. And the sources break down how different types of inherited properties bring, like, entirely different layers of misery. I mean, inheriting a standard house is hard enough. But if you inherit an apartment building,
That's a whole different nightmare.
right, you aren't just inheriting a building, you are suddenly drafted into being a landlord. You're taking on tenant disputes, potential evictions, the financial drain of vacancies.
And if it's a commercial property, you are looking at incredibly high upkeep costs.
Yeah, and even a simple vacant lot generates absolutely zero income, but you are still on the hook for maintenance and taxes.
Which brings up a really critical piece of advice from the source material. If you find yourself in this situation, there is a very specific order of operations you need to follow.
Okay, lay it out for us.
First, you have to consult a probate attorney to map out the legal timeline. Second, gather every single piece of documentation you can find: wills, death certificates, the original deed.
Get organized early.
Yeah, exactly. Third, get a professional property appraisal. You need to know the actual market value, not the emotional value. And finally, consult a tax professional, because selling an inherited asset can trigger capital gains taxes, and you need to know your exposure before you make any sudden decisions.
Okay, so that perfectly explains the slow, bureaucratic grind that traps families in inherited homes. But let's look at the dark side of those carrying costs we just talked about.
The ticking clock.
Right, because if a probate case drags out, or if, say, a homeowner just loses their job and can't keep up with the bills, they suddenly find themselves racing against a ticking clock. The sources highlight taxes, foreclosures, and divorce as the primary drivers of these distressed sales.
Yeah, those are the big three.
So how does the pressure of time fundamentally change the way a person has to sell their house?
Well, it changes everything, because the consequences of missing these deadlines are catastrophic. Let's look at property taxes first.
Okay.
John Constantine's analysis of Clark County, Nevada, shows how falling behind on property taxes creates this compounding crisis. The county doesn't just send a polite reminder in the mail.
I wish they did.
Right. No, they attach severe financial penalties and interests that snowball rapidly. If ignored, the county eventually seizes the property and sells it at a public tax auction to recoup their money.
So you just lose it.
Yeah. When that gavel falls at the auction, any equity the homeowner had built up over the years is just instantly wiped out. A traditional real estate sale, with its weeks of staging and showings and a 30 to 60-day escrow period, is simply too slow to outrun a scheduled tax auction.
Wow. And it's the exact same mechanism with a pre-foreclosure, isn't it?
Very similar, yeah.
You miss a few mortgage payments, the bank files a notice of default, and the countdown basically begins.
Yeah.
The sources really emphasize that sellers have a very narrow window during this pre-foreclosure phase to sell the property before the bank takes it to the courthouse steps.
Right, it's a race.
Yeah, and if they can sell it fast enough, they settle the mortgage debt, stop the collection calls, and preserve their credit score. So this one financial stumble doesn't lock them out of the housing market for the next decade.
It is entirely about damage control.
Yeah.
And then you have the complexities of divorce, which introduces a totally different kind of ticking clock.
Right, because emotions are running high.
Exactly. Alina Smith's guide dives into how ending a marriage impacts property ties, specifically in Nevada, because Nevada operates under community property laws.
Meaning everything is split.
Right. It means that assets acquired during the marriage, including the family home, are generally viewed as belonging equally to both spouses, 50-50.
Good luck trying to physically cut a house in half.
That is exactly the problem. You can't. So the family court requires an exact valuation of the home and a concrete resolution strategy before they will even finalize the separation agreement.
Wow, so you're stuck.
Yeah. Now imagine a couple going through a bitter divorce deciding to list their home on the traditional market.
That sounds like a disaster.
It is. They have to agree on a listing agent, they have to co-manage repair costs, they have to keep the house perfectly clean and vacate it every weekend for showings, all while dealing with the emotional fallout of ending their marriage.
That sounds exhausting. And expensive, I'd imagine.
Oh, incredibly. Those delays prolong the emotional tension and rack up massive attorney fees for every single month the divorce is stalled. So, selling the home directly to an investor allows both individuals to liquidate the joint asset immediately, split the cash according to the court's formula, and just move forward independently.
Okay, wait. If you're drowning in tax debt or behind on your mortgage, how can you even sell the house? Don't you owe the county or the bank before you can hand over the keys? I mean, how does a homeowner with a zero balance in their checking account actually facilitate this transaction?
Okay, so this is where we need to explain the mechanics of escrow and title companies, because it's a common misconception.
Yeah, I definitely thought you had to pay it first.
A lot of people do, but you do not need to pay off those debts out of your own pocket before the sale happens. In a real estate transaction, a neutral third party, the title company, acts as the referee.
Okay, the referee.
Right. They open an escrow account, which is essentially a secure holding pen for the money. When the cash buyer purchases the home, they wire the full purchase amount directly into that escrow account. The title company then takes that pool of cash and pays off the county tax debt or the outstanding mortgage balance directly.
Oh, so the buyer's money clears the seller's debt simultaneously.
Correct. The debts are cleared first. Then, whatever money is left over in the escrow account, which is the seller's remaining equity, is distributed to the homeowner.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the transaction clears the title at the exact moment of closing. It requires absolutely zero upfront cash from the distressed seller.
That makes so much sense. The sale itself is literally the eraser for the debt. Exactly. So we've looked at the legal gridlocks and the financial ticking clocks. But the sources also emphasize that real estate does not exist in a vacuum, right? It is intensely hyper-local.
Very much so.
Here's where it gets really interesting. We need to look at the specific physical environment these articles focus on, which is Las Vegas, Nevada.
The desert.
Yeah. I mean, a broken air conditioner in a lot of states just means you open a window and maybe buy a box fan. But in the Las Vegas Valley, where it literally hits 115 degrees in the summer, a failing HVAC system isn't just an inconvenience. It is a structural crisis.
Yeah, the physical environment is a massive variable that dictates market behavior out there. Southern Nevada exerts a unique physical toll on buildings. The intense, relentless desert heat just bakes roofing materials, it destroys exterior paint, and it pushes cooling systems to their absolute limits.
I can really imagine.
John Constantine points out that if a homeowner does decide to brave the traditional market to try and get top dollar, they cannot rely on generic flipping advice from, cable television.
Right, no shiplap and barn doors.
Yeah. Exactly. They have to cater specifically to Vegas buyers, which means prioritizing energy efficiency, rigorous HVAC overhauls, and low-water desert landscaping.
So cosmetic stuff doesn't matter as much.
Well, minor cosmetic kitchen updates might help a bit, but dropping $50,000 on luxury countertops is a terrible return on investment if the fundamental systems of the house are actively losing a war against the desert.
That makes sense. But why does this push people toward cash buyers? If I'm a traditional buyer and I find a house in Vegas with a struggling AC unit, couldn't I just negotiate the price down, buy it, and fix it myself?
You might want to, but your bank won't let you.
Wait, really?
Yes. This is the hidden hurdle of the traditional market, the bank appraisal. When a traditional buyer applies for a mortgage, the bank sends out an appraiser to ensure the house is actually worth the loan amount. But more importantly, that it is safe and habitable.
Okay, I see where this is going.
Right. If the appraiser notes a failing HVAC system in a severe desert climate or a compromised roof, the bank views that property as a massive risk. They will simply refuse to fund the loan until those defects are repaired by the seller.
And if the seller doesn't have the money to fix the AC?
The deal collapses, period.
Wow.
Traditional buyers are handcuffed by their lender's strict requirements. Specialized cash buyer, on the other hand, use their own capital. They bypass bank financing entirely. This means they can purchase a home with severe, localized defects that render it completely unsellable on the open market.
That is wild. And that actually brings us to another fascinating local quirk in the sources, which is mobile homes.
Oh, this is a really unique sector.
Yeah, there is a huge demand in Las Vegas for affordable, low-maintenance housing. It's driven by both full-time residents and seasonal snowbirds who just want a place for the winter. But the legal classification of these mobile homes completely blew my mind.
It surprises a lot of people.
The guides explain that mobile homes located on leased land are typically treated as personal property, not real estate. What does that actually mean in practice?
Well, it means you're dealing with two entirely different types of ownership. So, real estate or real property includes the land and anything permanently attached to it.
Right, a traditional house.
Exactly. But if you own a mobile home located in a park where you pay monthly rent for the dirt underneath it, the structure itself is legally classified as personal property.
That's crazy.
It is. The legal process of transferring ownership isn't handled through a traditional real estate deed. It is handled through a title transfer, which is very similar to how you would buy or sell a car at the DMV.
Okay, but again, why does a bank care a house is a house, right?
A bank cares deeply about collateral. If you default on a traditional mortgage, the bank forecloses and they take the land and the house. But if you default on a loan for a mobile home on leased land, the bank only gets the structure.
Which is much harder to deal with.
Exactly. Furthermore, if you stop paying the land lease to the park owner can legally evict the structure entirely.
Evict the whole house.
Yes. So the risk profile is an absolute nightmare for standard lenders. It makes traditional mortgages incredibly rare and difficult to secure for these properties. Navigating community regulations, park approvals, and land lease agreements requires really specialized knowledge.
So cash buyers just swoop in.
Right. Direct cash buyers who focus on this niche bypass all those traditional lending roadblocks because, again, they don't need a bank's permission to buy personal property.
It's like they're playing an entirely different game with a totally different rule book.
They really are.
So what does this all mean? If cash buyers pay below market value, why are fast home sales surging in popularity right now among mature homeowners, landlords, and retirees? Let's step back and look at the macroeconomics of all of this. We've explored the inheritance traps, the ticking clocks of taxes and divorce, and the extreme variables of the desert environment. Let's compare the two paths. How do the traditional open market and the fast cash market fundamentally differ in how they value a home?
They prioritize opposite things.
Okay.
The traditional market is engineered to maximize the final sale price, but it demands significant time, capital, and risk from the seller to achieve that number. The seller has to absorb out-of-pocket repair costs just to pass those bank appraisals we talked about. They have to pay for staging. They have to endure the disruption of open houses. Most significantly, they have to pay the standard 5 to 6% agent commissions and traditional closing costs. And they do all of this while sitting in a prolonged escrow period, holding their breath, hoping the buyer's mortgage approval doesn't fall through at the last minute and force them to start over from scratch.
It's a marathon with hurdles.
Precisely. On the flip side, the cash market is a dead sprint. The sources emphasize that these properties are purchased strictly as is. That means zero repairs, zero cosmetic upgrades. You don't even have to clean the property or empty the garage. You just take what you want and leave the junk behind.
Just walk away.
Exactly. And because there are no real estate agents involved, you bypass that 5 to 6% commission. To put that in perspective, on a $400,000 house, avoiding a 6% commission saves you $24,000 right off the top.
That is a massive chunk of money.
It is. And because they aren't waiting on a bank to underwrite a loan, a cash buyer can close a transaction in 7 to 14 days. Or they offer flexible timelines, letting the seller choose a closing date months in the future to perfectly align with the relocation schedule.
But there is a massive catch.
Always.
The FAQs in the source material are very transparent about this. They state plainly that cash offers are typically below market value. So again, if we look at the bottom line, why would someone look at a lower number on paper and say, yes, I will take less money for my house?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it forces us to redefine how we calculate the total value of a transaction. Yes, the raw purchase price on the contract might be lower than a theoretical top-of-the-market estimate on some website. But sellers in these situations aren't just selling a piece of real estate. They are purchasing a solution.
Purchasing a solution. I like that.
They are trading a potentially higher open market price for immediate liquidity and absolute financial certainty.
They are buying the elimination of risk.
Exactly that. Consider the math of time and risk. They eliminate the risk of pouring $10,000 into a roof repair, only to have a traditional buyer back out of the deal 3 weeks later. They eliminate the carrying costs, the taxes, the insurance, the utilities, the mortgage payments that they would have to keep paying for 6 months while the house just sits on the market.
Right.
For a retiree looking to downsize without exhausting themselves, or a family navigating the grief and legal gridlock of probate, the traditional market demands time, capital, and emotional energy they simply do not possess. The direct cash model restores autonomy to the seller during a highly vulnerable transition. They dictate the timeline, they avoid out-of-pocket expenses, and they secure a guaranteed exit.
It's really the difference between the gross price tag and the net cash in your pocket. When you actually subtract the commissions, the repair costs, the holding costs for months on end, and the sheer toll on your own sanity, that below-market cash offer suddenly looks remarkably close to the actual net cash you would have walked away with anyway.
It really does.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I think about what you, listening right now, can take away from all this. Even if you never inherit a distressed property, and even if you never live a single day in the Las Vegas Valley, understanding the hidden mechanics of real estate is incredibly empowering.
Absolutely.
I mean, understanding how community property laws divide assets in a divorce, grasping why the legal delays of probate can financially ruin an estate, or just knowing why a mobile home on leased land is legally closer to a car than a house. This knowledge equips you to handle your own future life transitions with your eyes wide open. You realize you are no longer just subject to the whims of the traditional market.
This raises an important question, though, one that challenges a deeply ingrained financial assumption.
Okay, what's that?
We are conditioned from a young age to view our homes as our ultimate financial assets. They are our piggy banks, meant to be maximized and sold for the absolute highest dollar amount possible, regardless of the effort required to get there. But if time truly is money, and if emotional stress, legal delays, and carrying costs have a tangible, heavy price, at what point does stubbornly holding out for market value actually become the most expensive mistake a family can make?
Wow. That brings us right back to the beginning. Next time you're sitting at a red light and you see one of those "we buy houses for cash" signs stapled to a telephone pole, you won't just see a cheap marketing gimmick.
No, you'll see the whole picture.
You'll understand the invisible pressures happening behind closed doors, the looming tax auctions, the probate gridlocks, the sheer exhaustion of managing a property you didn't ask for and can't afford to fix. You'll realize that for a lot of people, it's not about maximizing a profit. It's simply about finding a way to stop paying docking fees, getting rid of that heavy barnacle-covered boat, and finally being able to walk away.